Would you give up your only chance at success to help someone else? One choice changed everything. Derek Carter's days always began before the sun. At 16, he had grown used to the quiet of the pre-dawn streets, the damp chill clinging to his jacket as he walked alone, his grey backpack slung over one shoulder. The streets were silent except for the soft shuffle of his worn shoes against the cracked pavement, his path taking him past the shuttered storefronts and dimly lit street lamps. For most kids his age, mornings were a time of groggy yawns and last-minute homework. But for Derek, they were the start of a workday. St. Augustine Academy loomed ahead, its grand iron gates wrapped in ivy, its marble columns gleaming even in the faint morning light. To the city's elite, it was a place of legacy and academy where generations of lawyers, doctors, and politicians had walked the hallowed halls. But for Derek, it was a place of opportunity wrapped in sacrifice. He wasn't just a student here, he was also the janitor. That was the deal: 2 hours of cleaning before and after class in exchange for a scholarship that his family could never afford. Derek's mother, Sandra Carter, worked at the downtown hospital, scrubbing floors in the ICU, her hands red and rough from years of chemical cleaners. Life had been a struggle for them ever since his father passed away, a heart attack that came too soon and left too many bills behind. His mother never complained, never spoke of dreams left behind. She worked 2 jobs, did her best to keep their tiny apartment warm, and always had a soft smile for Derek and his little sister, Lila. Lila was only 10, her laughter a bright spot in their dim world. Derek would often leave a little note in her lunchbox, "You're going to do great today," hoping she would carry that joy with her. At 6:10 a.m., Derek unlocked the side gate of St. Augustine Academy. The school's imposing facade seemed to watch him, its stained glass windows reflecting the pale sky. He slipped inside, making his way to the maintenance closet near the east wing. His backpack was light, just a notebook, a couple of pens, and a worn-out copy of a geometry textbook. Most of the space was taken up by his work gloves, a rag, and a small sandwich wrapped in wax paper. He moved through the empty halls with quiet efficiency, dusting chalkboards, mopping floors, changing out the trash bags, all the while keeping his movements light and his thoughts focused. The students would start arriving in an hour, stepping out of sleek cars driven by chauffeurs or escorted by parents dressed in tailored suits. They would glide through the halls without a second thought, their polished shoes tapping against the marble floors. For them, St. Augustine was a place of privilege. For Derek, it was a fortress of opportunity he had to earn each day. By 7:30, his shift was done. He washed his hands at the small sink in the janitor's closet, pulled off his work gloves, and slipped on his school uniform second-hand, but clean and pressed. His shoes were old, but they shone from his nightly polish. He glanced at his reflection in the dusty mirror, tall and lean, with deep brown skin, short curls neatly brushed, and sharp, intelligent eyes that spoke of determination beyond his years. Derek made his way to room 203, his favorite classroom. He always sat in the back row, by the window. It wasn't an assigned seat, but everyone seemed to know it was his. The light streamed through the stained glass, casting a warm golden glow across his desk. From here, he could see the east courtyard, where the ivy grew thickest and the statue of the school's founder stood like a silent guardian. The other students trickled in, a mix of familiar faces, some friendly, some indifferent, and a few who barely acknowledged his existence. They laughed about weekend plans, whispered about the latest fashion trends, or compared notes for the upcoming exam. Derek listened quietly, his notebook already open, his pencil ready. He had learned early on to blend in, to keep his head down, to work harder than anyone else. Mr. Harrison, the history teacher, entered, his booming voice pulling the class to attention. Derek loved history, the stories of those who came before, of struggle, of triumph, but his mind was always half in the present, calculating his grades, tracking his assignments, reminding himself of the scholarship's conditions. If his grades slipped, if he missed a shift, if he broke any rule, everything he had worked for could disappear in an instant. Not that everyone noticed his efforts. Some did quietly. Mrs. Green, the librarian, would set aside a copy of the newest science journal for him. Coach Diaz would nod in approval whenever Derek ran the track in record time. But there were others who only saw the uniform, the cleaning supplies. "Hey, janitor," a boy named Travis once sneered, tossing a crumpled napkin onto the floor as Derek mopped the hallway. Derek had simply bent down, picked it up, and continued without a word. His mother had taught him that endure without complaint, and so he did. Until he couldn't. Until something changed. It was Tuesday morning. The kind of damp, grey day that clung to your skin. Derek was finishing his early shift, wiping down the tables in the art room, the smell of lemon cleaner lingering in the air. As he walked toward room 203, his usual seat already in sight, he paused for a moment, watching the students fill the hallway, their laughter a soft hum. To them, this was just another school day. To Derek, it was another chance to hold onto his dream. But dreams have a way of being tested. He didn't know that today would be different, that in just a few hours, his life would change. He didn't know that an act of kindness, a decision made without hesitation, would force him to choose between his own future and someone else's life. He didn't know that the quiet, unnoticed boy who swept floors and saved his pennies would soon become the center of a story that would shake the very foundation of St. Augustine Academy. Because sometimes the most powerful stories begin not with a hero, but with a choice. And Derek Carter was about to make a choice that would change everything. The morning light struggled to break through the grey clouds that hung low over St. Augustine Academy. Derek Carter, now seated at the back of room 203, was already focused on the sheet of paper before him. It was the mid-year scholarship evaluation exam test that determined his future. For Derek, this was more than just another test. It was a lifeline. The scholarship was his only way to stay at this prestigious academy, a world so far removed from the cramped apartment he shared with his mother and little sister. The room was silent, save for the soft scratching of pencils on paper. Rows of students, all dressed in their neatly pressed uniforms, leaned over their desks, eyes fixed on the questions. Derek's pencil moved with precision, his mind racing, but his hands steady. Years of hard work, countless late nights and early mornings had led to this moment. He knew the stakes better than anyone. He had to do well. He had to prove himself. For his mother, Sandra, who worked herself to the bone-cleaning hospital floors just so he and Lila could have a better life. For Lila, who looked up to him with bright eyes and believed he could do anything. And for himself, because every number, every sentence on this test was a step toward a future he could barely dare to imagine. He was halfway through the essay question, his thoughts flowing onto the paper, when it happened. A sharp, ragged gasp cut through the quiet. Derek's head snapped up, his eyes immediately landing on the boy next to him, Liam Parker. Pale, freckled, with his blonde hair usually slicked back, but now falling across his forehead. But something was wrong. Terribly wrong. Liam's face was ghostly white, his hand clutching at his chest. His breathing came in short, rapid bursts, his lips turning an alarming shade of blue. And then he slumped forward, his forehead hitting the desk with a dull thud. A ripple of shock swept through the room. Some students froze, wide-eyed, while others exchanged panicked whispers, but no one moved. No one except Derek. Instinct took over. Derek was out of his seat before his mind could even process what he was doing. He reached Liam just as the boy's body began to slide from his chair. Gently, Derek eased him to the floor, laying him on his side. His hands moved quickly, tilting Liam's head back to clear his airway, checking his breathing, shallow, faint, but there. "Stay in your seats," snapped Miss Grigg, the proctor, her voice sharp as a blade. Her pearl necklace caught the light as she strode to the front, her hand gripping the intercom. "Medical emergency in room 203, now." But Derek wasn't listening. His focus was entirely on Liam. He loosened the boy's tie, unbuttoned the top of his shirt, trying to give him more air. He had read about this, studied first aid manuals from the library on his lunch breaks. He knew that seconds mattered. "Come on, Liam," he whispered, his voice a mix of urgency and fear. "Stay with me." The nurse arrived, her cart rattling, her expression one of calm urgency. She knelt beside Derek, quickly assessing the situation. "You did well, son," she said, her voice steady. "We've got it from here." Derek stood, his legs suddenly feeling weak. He hadn't noticed the other students staring, hadn't heard the whispers growing louder. All he saw now was Miss Grigg's severe gaze, her eyes cold and hard. "Mr. Carter," she said, her voice slicing through the murmurs. "Return to your seat. Now." Derek glanced back at his desk. His exam paper lay there, the pencil still resting against the unfinished essay. But his heart was still racing, his mind still replaying Liam's pale face, his labored breathing. Slowly, he walked back, his steps heavy, and sat down. He looked at the clock. 15 minutes left. Not nearly enough time to complete the test. His hands shook as he picked up his pencil, but the words wouldn't come. His thoughts were scattered, his focus shattered. When the final bell rang, Miss Grigg called out, "Time! Pencils down!" Derek stared at his half-finished essay, his unanswered questions, and felt a hollow ache in his chest. He had failed. Not because he didn't know the answers, but because he hadn't finished. The one test that determined his future, and he had left it incomplete. As the other students filed out, some glanced at him with curiosity, others with something that looked almost like respect, but no one spoke. No one said anything. Derek gathered his things, his backpack feeling heavier than ever, and walked out of the room. The hallway felt too bright, the polished floors reflecting the cold morning light. Derek's thoughts were a storm. What would he tell his mother? What would happen now? But beneath the fear, there was something else, something that wouldn't let go. He didn't regret what he did. Liam had needed help, and Derek had acted, instinctively, without hesitation. But that didn't change the reality he now faced. His scholarship was as good as gone. Derek's routine didn't change. The next morning, he still arrived before dawn, unlocked the maintenance closet, and began his janitorial duties. But everything felt different. The teachers watched him a little longer, their smiles more hesitant. The students whispered in the halls, though they fell silent whenever he walked by. And then the letter came. A thin envelope, addressed to Derek Carter, with the school's official seal. He didn't open it right away. Instead, he stood in the empty hallway, staring at his name on the envelope, feeling the weight of it in his hands. Finally, he slipped a finger under the seal, pulled out the crisp letter, and read the words that seemed to blur before his eyes. Dear Mr. Carter, we regret to inform you that your scholarship has been revoked, effective immediately due to an incomplete evaluation score. That was it. No mention of why his test was incomplete, no acknowledgement of his actions. Just cold, calculated words that sealed his fate. Derek's world felt like it was crumbling. Without the scholarship, there was no way he could stay at St. Augustine. No way he could achieve the future he had worked so hard for. No way to make his mother proud, to set an example for Lila. But as he folded the letter and slipped it into his pocket, Derek's jaw tightened. He had lost his chance, but he hadn't lost who he was. He had done the right thing, even when it cost him everything. And while that thought didn't make the pain go away, it gave him something else, something that no letter could take from him. A sense of dignity, a quiet pride in knowing that he hadn't stood by while someone else suffered. Derek Carter had lost his scholarship, but he hadn't lost himself. And somehow, in the quiet emptiness of that hallway, he knew that mattered most. Days blurred together for Derek Carter after the scholarship was revoked. Each morning, he still arrived early, slipped into the janitor's closet, and began his cleaning duties before the other students even woke up. His mop glided across the tiled hallways of St. Augustine Academy. The polished wood of the library gleamed under his careful hands, but the weight in his chest never lightened. He avoided room 203, the exam hall, like a ghost avoiding its grave. He didn't want to see the place where everything had changed, where he had chosen to save a life and lost his own future in the process. But just because he stayed silent didn't mean others did. Whispers followed him through the hallways like shadows. Some students cast him sympathetic looks, others stared as if he were a curiosity, a legend in the making. But the story twisted in every telling. I heard he failed because he panicked. No, he just walked out of the test. Can you believe he's still here? Shouldn't he be expelled or something? He saved someone, you know. Liam Parker. The boy could have died. But he didn't finish the test. Rules are rules. Each version grew further from the truth. Derek's silence only fueled the speculation. He didn't defend himself, didn't explain. What was the point? The scholarship was gone. His place in St. Augustine was gone. It didn't matter what anyone thought anymore. But then something changed. On a cold, rainy Thursday, as Derek finished mopping the main hallway, he noticed a folded piece of paper tucked behind his cleaning supplies. Curious, he picked it up and unfolded it. You did the right thing. No name, just those words written in neat, careful handwriting. He stared at the note for a long moment, feeling a faint warmth stir in his chest. Someone understood. Someone saw him. But who? Over the next few days, more notes appeared. Tucked under his cleaning cart, slipped between the pages of his notebook left on the janitor's shelf. Each one simple but sincere. Courage isn't free, but it's always worth the cost. Heroes don't always wear capes. Sometimes they carry mops. The notes became a small comfort, a reminder that his choice hadn't gone completely unnoticed. But as the rumors continued, a darker shadow began to spread. Teachers glanced at him with conflicted eyes, and the headmaster's office door seemed to open and close more frequently whenever he passed. And then he heard it. The whispered suggestion in the teacher's lounge as he quietly emptied the trash bins. "I just don't think we should reward students for breaking exam protocol, no matter the reason. It sets a dangerous precedent. Derek is a good kid, but rules are rules. We can't just ignore them." That cold, impersonal phrase again, "rules are rules." A phrase that seemed to matter more than the life he had helped save. But the worst came one rainy afternoon. Derek was cleaning the main corridor when he heard a group of students by the lockers. "Liam's mom is rich. I heard she paid for his medical bills." "Really? I heard she paid Derek to step in and make it look like an emergency." "No way." "But why would she do that? Maybe to make her son look like a victim? Or maybe she just wants to replace Derek with someone richer. His scholarship is gone after all." The words burned. They weren't just lies, they were cruel. They twisted his sacrifice into something ugly, something selfish. He clenched his jaw, gripping the mop handle so tightly his knuckles turned white. But he didn't say anything. He just kept cleaning, kept his head down, and let the whispers pass. But the anger didn't go away. It festered, turning into a dull ache that gnawed at his chest. He had done the right thing, hadn't he? He had chosen to help, even when it meant losing everything. So, why did it feel like he was being punished over and over? That evening, as Derek walked home, the rain soaked through his thin jacket, his shoes squelching with each step. The city seemed grey, the sky pressing down like a weight. But when he turned the corner to his apartment building, he saw something that stopped him. A woman stood by the front door, her sleek black car parked at the curb. She wore a tailored grey suit, her short hair neatly styled, and her eyes were sharp, focused. As soon as she saw him, she stepped forward. "Derek Carter?" "Yes," he replied warily. "My name is Evelyn Winthrop. I'm Liam Parker's mother." His heart skipped a beat. What did she want? To accuse him? To offer money to keep him quiet? He didn't know what to expect, but her next words shattered his expectations. "I wanted to thank you," she said, her voice calm but sincere. "My son told me what happened. You saved his life." Derek's shoulders eased, but only slightly. "I didn't do it for thanks, Mom." "No, I don't imagine you did," she replied, a small smile touching her lips. "But that's exactly why it matters." There was a silence between them, the rain tapping softly on the car roof. "I heard about your scholarship," she continued, "and I've spoken with the school administration. I've requested they reconsider." Derek shook his head, his expression darkening. "They won't. Rules are rules." Evelyn's smile faded. "We'll see about that, but I'm not just here for them. I'm here for you. Derek, would you be willing to come with me? I have an idea, and I think it might change everything." He hesitated, the rain cold against his skin, but something in her eyes clear, determined, drew him in. I guess so," he said. "Good," she replied, opening the car door for him, "because no one should ever be punished for doing the right thing." As Derek climbed into the warm, leather interior of the car, he felt a flicker of something he hadn't felt in Dayshope. Real, fragile, but alive. And as the car pulled away, the city lights reflecting in the rain-soaked streets, he couldn't help but wonder if maybe, just maybe, his story wasn't over yet. Maybe it was only just beginning. The next morning, Derek Carter stepped out of the car, his shoes crunching against the wet gravel of St. Augustine Academy's grand entrance. Beside him, Evelyn Winthrop walked with a confident, steady stride. Her tailored suit seemed immune to the drizzle that misted the campus, while Derek felt every drop like a reminder of his uncertain place here. He shouldn't be back. Not like this. Not as a guest standing beside one of the city's most influential women. But Evelyn had insisted. "Trust me," she'd said, her voice calm, but with a sharp edge of determination. "This isn't over. Not until they understand who they're dealing with." And now, here they were, walking past students who turned to stare, whispers trailing behind them like a soft murmur. Some recognized Evelyn immediately, CEO of Winthrop and Lane Technologies. Others recognized Derek the janitor student, the boy who lost his scholarship. But none of them knew why they were together. Evelyn's heels clicked sharply against the marble floors as they entered the administration building. The receptionist looked up, her polite smile faltering at the sight of Evelyn's steely gaze. "Good morning. May I help you?" "Yes," Evelyn replied, her tone polite but firm. "We're here to see the headmaster. Now." "Do you have an appointment?" Evelyn leaned forward, her voice dropping to a measured, almost icy tone. "Tell him that Dr. Evelyn Winthrop is here to discuss the revocation of a scholarship under questionable circumstances. I'm sure he'll make time." The receptionist's face paled slightly. "Of course, ma'am. One moment." Derek watched as the woman scrambled to her feet, disappearing through a side door. He felt his pulse quicken, his hands clenching nervously at his sides. He didn't belong here, not like this. He was supposed to be mopping floors, not standing in the center of the grand marble lobby, waiting to confront the people who had judged him. But Evelyn stood beside him, calm, composed. When she noticed his fidgeting, she gave him a reassuring glance. "Breathe, Derek. Remember, you did nothing wrong. They did." The door swung open, and the headmaster stepped out, his forced smile barely hiding the tension in his eyes. "Dr. Winthrop, what a surprise. Please come in." They followed him down a hallway lined with portraits of past headmasters, their stern faces watching over the school's long history. The office was large, with dark wood furniture and tall windows that looked out over the courtyard. A leather chair sat empty across from the headmaster's desk, but Evelyn didn't sit. Neither did Derek. "Dr. Winthrop, to what do I owe this?" "I'm here about Derek Carter's scholarship," she interrupted, her voice calm but unyielding. "The scholarship you revoked after he saved my son's life." The headmaster's expression tightened. "Ah, yes. A most unfortunate situation. But you must understand, our policies are clear. The exam was a requirement." "Your policies," Evelyn said, her voice cutting through his excuses, "punished a child for doing the right thing. Derek didn't simply miss a test, has saved a life, my son's life." "Be that as it may," the headmaster replied, shifting uncomfortably. "We cannot make exceptions if we bend the rules for one student." "Spare me the lecture on fairness," Evelyn snapped. "Your rules were not written to punish bravery. They were written to uphold the values of this school. But today, those values are nothing but empty words." Derek stood silently beside her, feeling both awe and fear. He had never seen anyone speak to the headmaster this way. "Dr. Winthrop, with all due respect." "With all due respect?" Evelyn's voice rose slightly, her sharp gaze pinning the headmaster in place. This school's reputation is built on honor, integrity, and excellence. Tell me, what honor is there in punishing a child who acted selflessly? What integrity is there in hiding behind rules instead of recognizing courage? The headmaster opened his mouth, but no words came out. Derek Carter will have his scholarship reinstated, Evelyn continued, and you will issue a formal apology to him publicly. The headmaster's face reddened. Publicly? That's non-negotiable, Evelyn said, her voice as cold as the rain outside. Unless, of course, you would prefer this story to reach the local press. Prestigious academy punishes student for saving a life. I can assure you it would be a compelling headline. Silence fell over the room. Derek's heart raced, his mind a whirlwind. This wasn't just a request, it was a battle. And Evelyn was winning. The headmaster's shoulders sagged slightly. Very well. I will bring this to the scholarship committee. We will reconsider. No, Evelyn replied, her voice steel. You will restore his scholarship. Today, I'll wait. The headmaster's jaw clenched, but he nodded. Of course. Good, Evelyn said, her voice softening just slightly. Then we'll wait here. The headmaster stood and walked out, leaving them alone in the grand office. Derek turned to Evelyn, his voice a whisper. Why did you? Because what happened to you was wrong, she said simply. And because I have the power to make it right. But why do you care so much? Evelyn's expression softened. Because I've spent my life fighting to make a name for myself in a world that didn't want me. Because I know what it means to be judged, to be overlooked, and because I won't stand by while another child is punished for being better than the world expects. Derek's throat tightened. Thank you, I don't know how to. You don't have to thank me, she interrupted, her voice gentle now. Just promise me one thing, when you get your future back, don't waste it. Do something that matters. He nodded, a tear slipping down his cheek. I will. Minutes later, the headmaster returned, his expression grim but resigned. Mr. Carter, your scholarship has been reinstated. A public apology will be issued at the next school assembly. Evelyn smiled. Thank you. We'll be there. As they left the office, Derek felt a strange lightness in his chest, a warmth that pushed away the cold drizzle outside. He looked up at Evelyn, her sharp, determined gaze fixed ahead. You really didn't have to do all this, he whispered. Yes, I did, she replied, without looking back. And one day, Derek, you'll understand why. But even then, as they walked toward her car, Derek already knew. Evelyn Winthrop wasn't just fighting for him, she was fighting for every student like him, for every child who had ever been told they didn't belong, And now, as the rain turned to sunlight, Derek Carter dared to hope that maybe, just maybe, he did. The following week, the Grand Assembly Hall of St. Augustine Academy was packed. Students filled the neatly arranged rows of seats, their murmurs a quiet hum beneath the grand chandeliers that hung from the high ceiling. Teachers stood along the walls, some exchanging tense glances, while others watched the stage with a sense of anticipation. Derek Carter sat near the back, his hands resting on his knees, trying to ignore the way his heart pounded against his ribs. He was dressed in his best uniform, the one Evelyn had arranged for him, pressed and clean. He still couldn't quite believe this was happening, that he was sitting here as a guest, not a worker. That the whispers weren't just about him. but about what he represented. Beside him, Evelyn Winthrop sat with a calm, steady gaze fixed on the stage. She had insisted on being here, and Derek knew why. This wasn't just his moment, it was a message. The headmaster stepped up to the podium, adjusting his tie and clearing his throat. The murmurs softened, then faded into complete silence. "Good morning, students, faculty, and honored guests," he began, his voice steady but lacking the usual confidence Derek remembered. "Today, we gather not just for our regular assembly, but to acknowledge a situation that has brought to light the true values of our institution." A soft rustle went through the crowd, curiosity, confusion, a few quiet whispers. "We pride ourselves on excellence, on integrity, on shaping young minds to lead with honor," the headmaster continued. "But there are moments when our adherence to rules can cause us to lose sight of those values. Today, we must confront one such moment." He paused, his gaze drifting toward the back of the hall where Derek sat. For a moment, their eyes met, and Derek's breath caught in his throat. "Derek Carter," the headmaster announced, "please join me on stage." Every head in the room turned as Derek stood, his legs feeling like they might give way beneath him. But Evelyn's gentle touch on his arm gave him strength, and he made his way down the aisle, each step feeling like a mile. When he reached the stage, the headmaster stepped aside, and Derek stood before the entire school. His eyes scanned the sea of faces, some curious, some supportive, some indifferent. But he didn't focus on them. He focused on Evelyn, who gave him a reassuring nod. "Derek Carter is a student who has demonstrated exceptional courage, integrity, and selflessness," the headmaster continued. "In an extraordinary moment, he chose to save the life of a fellow student, even at the cost of his own future." A hushed silence followed. Some students exchanged glances, the weight of those words settling over them. "Unfortunately," the headmaster went on, "our policies failed to reflect the values we claim to uphold. In our strict adherence to rules, we punished a young man for doing what was right, and for that, we were wrong." Derek's heart raced. He never thought he would hear those words, an admission of fault, a public acknowledgement that he had been wronged. "Today," the headmaster announced, his voice firm, "we restore Derek Carter's scholarship, effective immediately. But more than that, we take this opportunity to learn from our mistakes. St. Augustine Academy is not just a place of academic excellence, it must also be a place of compassion, of integrity, of justice." A ripple of applause began at the back of the room, then spread, gaining strength. Students clapped, some stood, and even a few teachers joined in. Derek stood frozen, his cheeks flushed, a mix of disbelief and gratitude overwhelming him. "And as a further commitment to these values," the headmaster added, "we are proud to announce the creation of the Carter Winthrop Scholarship, a new fund that will support high-achieving students who demonstrate courage, integrity, and service to others." A louder cheer erupted this time, and Derek turned to see Evelyn smiling, her expression one of quiet pride. The headmaster gestured for him to speak, and for a moment, Derek's mind went blank. But then, looking out at the sea of faces, he found his voice. I never thought I'd be standing here," he began, his voice steadying as he spoke. "I didn't save Liam's life for recognition or reward. I did it because it was the right thing to do, because that's what my mum taught me, to help people, even when it's hard." A murmur of agreement swept through the crowd. "I never expected anything in return. But I want to thank Dr. Winthrop for standing by me, for believing in me when I had lost hope. And I want to thank all of you for not just seeing me as the janitor student, but as someone who deserves a chance. Another wave of applause, stronger this time. A few students stood, clapping, and soon the entire room was on its feet, a standing ovation that washed over Derek like a warm embrace. When the assembly ended, Derek was surrounded, students shook his hand, some patted his shoulder, a few even hugged him. Teachers offered quiet words of encouragement. Even the headmaster gave him a respectful nod as he stepped away from the podium. Evelyn appeared by his side, a proud smile on her face. "You did well, Derek." "I couldn't have done any of this without you," he admitted, his voice thick with emotion. Evelyn shook her head. "You had it in you all along. All I did was make sure they saw it." Outside, the grey clouds had given way to a pale sunlight that streamed through the arched windows, casting a warm glow over the courtyard. As Derek and Evelyn walked out together, he felt something he hadn't felt in a long time, hope. But it wasn't just for himself. It was for every student who walked the halls of St. Augustine Academy, for every child who struggled but kept going, for every person who chose kindness over ambition. "Where to now?" Derek asked as they reached the front steps. Evelyn smiled, a hint of amusement in her eyes. "Wherever you want, Derek. Your future is yours again. And I have a feeling you're going to do great things." Derek looked back at the towering stone walls of St. Augustine, then out at the open sky beyond. For the first time, they didn't feel like barriers. They felt like possibilities. "Maybe I'll start by visiting Liam," he said. "See how he's doing?" "A good start," Evelyn agreed. "But remember, don't just be a hero. Be someone who lifts others up." Derek smiled, a quiet confidence settling in his chest. "I will. I promise." And as they walked toward her waiting car, Derek Carter knew that this wasn't just the end of a struggle. It was the beginning of something much greater. Derek Carter walked the quiet hallways of St. Augustine Academy, his polished shoes clicking against the marble floors. But this time, he wasn't pushing a mop cart or cleaning chalkboards. He was a student, a gainer fact that felt both surreal and empowering. Yet beneath the surface of his restored scholarship and the whispers of admiration from other students, a sense of unease lingered. He hadn't seen Liam Winthrop since the assembly. Despite everything he had done for him, Liam seemed to have disappeared into the school's social currents, his absence a quiet reminder that wealth and privilege could insulate anyone from uncomfortable truths. One grey afternoon, Derek decided he needed to talk to Liam. Not for gratitude, but for understanding. As he walked across the courtyard, the sky hung low with thick silvery clouds, a light drizzle tapping against the ivy-clad walls. He knew exactly where to look. Room 304, the advanced literature class that Liam always bragged about. Derek knocked lightly before stepping in. The room was quiet, students absorbed in their books, and at the back, next to the window, sat Liam, his face pale, his expression distant. But when Derek's shadow fell over the desk, Liam looked up, and his eyes widened. "Derek," he stammered, a mix of shock and discomfort in his voice. "What are you... I heard you got your scholarship back." "That's... great." Derek nodded, but didn't smile. "Can we talk? Just for a minute?" Liam glanced around nervously, then nodded, rising from his seat. They stepped outside into the hallway, the sound of distant rain tapping against the stained glass windows, filling the silence. I never got a chance to thank you," Liam began, his voice low, avoiding Derek's eyes. "I didn't do it for thanks. Derek replied, his tone even. I did it because it was the right thing to do. Liam's gaze finally met his. I know, I didn't ask my mom to do all this. I didn't even know until she showed up that day. I believe you, Derek said, leaning against the wall. But that's not what I wanted to talk about. Liam's brow furrowed. Then what? Why didn't you say anything? Derek's voice was calm, but there was a quiet intensity beneath it. When I lost everything, my scholarship, my place here, you didn't say a word. Not to the teachers, not to the headmaster, not even to me. Liam's face turned red. I didn't know what to say. I was scared, okay? I didn't want to get involved. My mom is, well, she's powerful. And if she knew I messed up, if she thought I was weak… Being saved doesn't make you weak, Liam, Derek interrupted, his voice firm. But staying silent when you see something wrong does. A tense silence hung between them. Liam's fists clenched at his sides, but his expression crumbled. I didn't think it would matter, that they would just forget about you. Derek shook his head. That's the problem. People like me don't get forgotten. We get ignored. But I'm done being ignored. Liam's eyes filled with shame, but before he could respond, the bell rang, and the hallway filled with the shuffle of students. Derek stepped back, his gaze steady. You've got a voice, Liam. Use it for something that matters. He turned and walked away, leaving Liam standing alone, staring after him. The next few days were a whirlwind. Rumors spread through the school Derek Carter had confronted Liam Winthrop. Some whispered about a fight, others claimed Derek was going to sue the academy. But Derek didn't care about the rumors. His focus was on his studies, his future, and the quiet determination that had always driven him. But then, an unexpected twist came. The headmaster called Derek to his office one morning, his expression unreadable. Derek, he began, folding his hands on his desk, I wanted to speak with you about a proposal. Derek's brow furrowed. A proposal? Yes, the headmaster continued. Liam's mother, Dr. Winthrop, has suggested an initiative, a Student Ethics Council, a group of students who will serve as advocates for fairness, who will have a voice in decisions like disciplinary actions, scholarship evaluations, and other matters that impact their peers. Derek was stunned. And you want me to be part of it? The headmaster's lips twitched with a faint smile. Actually, I want you to lead it. A mixture of pride and hesitation washed over Derek. He had never imagined something like this, having a voice, not just for himself, but for others like him. For the quiet kids, the scholarship kids, the ones who were overlooked until they became a problem. But then, another thought struck him. And who suggested this? Liam's mother? Yes, the headmaster admitted. She believes your experience has given you a unique perspective, and she wants to ensure it's never repeated. Derek's jaw tightened. She wants to fix the school's image, you mean? The headmaster's smile faded. Perhaps, but if it means giving students a voice, does it matter? Derek considered this, then nodded slowly. I'll do it. But I want to choose the members. I want a mixed scholarship students, full pay students, athletes, artists, everyone. The headmaster leaned back, a look of mild surprise crossing his face. Agreed. I'll give you full discretion. Derek stood, a quiet resolve in his expression. And one more thing. I want Ms. Griggs' dismissal to be revisited, not to punish her, but to make sure she understands why what she did was wrong. The headmaster hesitated, then nodded. "I'll see what I can do." As Derek left the office, a sense of purpose settled over him. This wasn't just about a scholarship anymore. It was about change, real, lasting change. That afternoon, as the rain turned to a light mist, Derek stood by the east hallway window, the same one he used to clean every morning. But now, he stood as a leader, as someone who had fought for his place and won. His phone buzzed. A text from Evelyn. "Proud of you." Remember, a leader doesn't just speak, he listens. Derek smiled, his reflection faint in the glass. He had a voice now, and for the first time, he knew exactly how to use it. Across the courtyard, he saw Liam standing by the fountain, watching him. Their eyes met, and for a moment, Derek considered walking over. But instead, he simply nodded an unspoken truce, a quiet understanding. Derek turned away, his steps steady, his heart calm. This was just the beginning, and for the first time in his life, he didn't feel like he was walking alone. Derek Carter had always thought that survival meant staying quiet, blending in, and keeping his head down. But as he walked through the bustling hallways of St. Augustine Academy now, something had shifted. His footsteps echoed with a new confidence. His shoulders no longer slumped beneath the weight of expectation. His name wasn't just whispered in pity or mockery, it was spoken with respect. He was no longer just the janitor student. He was Derek Carter, the boy who had saved a life, the boy who had challenged the system. But not everyone was pleased with the change. Whispers trailed him wherever he went. Some students congratulated him, offering timid smiles or quick nods. Others avoided his gaze, their expressions stiff with resentment. A few even went out of their way to make their feelings known. "Did you hear?" a voice hissed from the hallway as Derek passed. "He's not a hero. He's just a charity case. His whole story is just a sob story for sympathy." Derek didn't turn, but the words struck like a cold wind. He clenched his fists, forcing himself to keep walking. He had learned long ago that words could hurt, but they only had power if he let them. Yet even as he tried to ignore the comments, a familiar doubt crept in. Did they only respect him now because of Dr. Winthrop's influence? Was this new acceptance just a facade? That afternoon, as the rain tapped against the classroom windows, Derek's focus wandered from his textbook. His mind drifted back to his old life, the quiet mornings cleaning hallways, the nights spent studying by the flickering kitchen light while his mother, Marlene, worked late shifts. He hadn't seen much of her lately. With her new position at Winthrop Lane Technologies, she was busier than ever, and though their small apartment was brighter now, with a new sofa and a fresh coat of paint, it felt emptier. A soft knock at the classroom door pulled him from his thoughts. It was Miss Jensen, the head of the English department, her silver hair pulled into a neat bun, her face lined with gentle wisdom. "Derek," she called, her voice warm but firm. "Could I see you for a moment?" He followed her down the hallway, his heart sinking slightly. Had he done something wrong? Had the other students' whispers reached the teachers? But when they reached her office, Miss C. Jensen didn't look angry. Instead, she gestured for him to sit, her own expression unreadable. "Derek," she began, folding her hands on her desk, "I've been hearing a lot about you lately. And I don't just mean the rumors." Derek's stomach tightened. Is there a problem?" She smiled slightly. "Only if you think there is." Her eyes softened. "Tell me, how are you really doing?" Derek blinked, caught off guard. It wasn't the question he expected. I'm fine. Just trying to keep up with everything." "Are you?" she pressed gently. "Because I see a young man who has been through a storm, who has fought harder than most just to be here. But storms don't always leave us the way they found us." Derek looked down, his fingers fidgeting. "Sometimes I wonder if any of this is real. If people only care because of Dr. Winthrop." Mrs. Jensen leaned back, her gaze steady. "Dr. Winthrop may have opened a door, but you walked through it. You earned your place here long before anyone knew your name. Don't let whispers make you forget that." Derek felt a warmth spread in his chest, a flicker of something he hadn't felt in a while. Hope. But it was quickly tempered by another thought. "But what about them?" he asked, his voice low. "The ones who think I don't belong, that I'm just here because I got lucky." Ms. Jensen's smile grew. "Those who think that way have never known what it means to fight for something they've never had to. Their words are their only weapon because they've never learned how to use anything else." Derek nodded, a faint smile touching his lips. "Thank you, Ms. Jensen." She reached across the desk, placing a gentle hand over his. "Remember, Derek, this school may teach lessons in books, but life's greatest lessons are learned through struggle, and you, my dear, are one of our finest students." But the test of Derek's resolve wasn't over. That weekend, St. Augustine hosted a charity gala grand event where parents, alumni, and school board members gathered to celebrate the Academy's legacy. The ballroom was a dazzling spectacle, crystal chandeliers reflecting off marble floors, waiters in crisp uniforms weaving between guests with silver trays. Derek had never been to an event like this. He felt out of place in the suit Dr. Winthrop had provided, the fabric crisp, the fit perfect. But as he stood near the back, watching the glittering crowd, his unease grew. Across the room, he saw Liam Winthrop, laughing with a group of his friends, his easy smile back, the shadows of that terrible day gone. Derek wondered if Liam even remembered what had happened. "Derek?" a voice called. He turned to see Evelyn Winthrop approaching, her presence commanding even in the crowded room. "I'm glad you came. I didn't want to disappoint you," he admitted, forcing a polite smile. "Nonsense," she replied. "You belong here just as much as anyone else." But as she spoke, her eyes glanced around the room, watching the reactions of the guests, and Derek couldn't help but notice the whispers, the curious glances, the forced smiles. "Is everything all right?" he asked. Evelyn's gaze softened. "Not everyone is as open-minded as they pretend to be, but that's their problem, not yours." Just then, the headmaster stepped onto the stage, tapping the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? Tonight, we celebrate not just excellence, but resilience, and I would like to recognize someone who embodies both Derek Carter." The room burst into polite applause, but beneath it, Derek could sense the murmurs. He forced a smile, nodding as the spotlight found him. He didn't want to be a spectacle, a charity case paraded for the Academy's reputation. "Thank you," Derek managed, his voice steady. "I appreciate everything this school has done for me, but I didn't come here tonight to be celebrated. I came here to learn, to grow, and to be a part of something greater." The applause grew. but Derek's heart pounded. He stepped down from the spotlight, making his way toward the exit. But as he reached the door, a hand caught his shoulder. "Leaving already?" It was Liam. "I don't belong here, Liam," Derek whispered, his voice tight. "Yes, you do," Liam insisted. "You belong here because you've earned it. And you're not just here because of what you did for me. You're here because of who you are." Derek stared at him, the tension slowly fading. For the first time, he saw Liam not as the privileged boy he had saved, but as a friend. "I'll see you in class?" Liam asked, a hopeful smile on his face. "Yeah," Derek replied, a small but genuine smile forming. "I'll see you." As he stepped out into the cool night air, Derek looked up at the starless sky. He had walked through a storm, but he wasn't just surviving anymore. He was beginning to live. The air was crisp, carrying the faint scent of autumn leaves as Derek Carter stepped onto the campus of St. Augustine Academy, the sunlight casting a warm golden hue over the ivy-clad walls. Yet beneath the serene beauty of the school, a quiet tension lingered. The story of Derek's selflessness and the subsequent loss of his scholarship had spread beyond the academy's walls. But the narrative had transformed no longer. Just a tale of injustice, it had become a symbol of integrity. Derek walked the familiar hallways, his head held a little higher, his footsteps steady. But there was something different now. The looks he received were no longer filled with pity or condescension. Some students smiled, others nodded respectfully. Even the teachers seemed to view him with a quiet admiration. And though whispers still existed, they were now laced with awe rather than scorn. But Derek wasn't one to get lost in admiration. His focus remained where it had always been, on learning, on growing, on becoming more than his circumstances. Each day, he slipped into his seat by the window, his old spot, the one where he used to watch the world beyond, while he scribbled notes in his worn notebook. Only now, he didn't have to hide behind humility. He belonged here, and he knew it. Yet life at St. Augustine wasn't the same. The administration was tense. The petition for Derek's scholarship reinstatement had reached the board, and though Dr. Evelyn Winthrop's influence had secured his place, the school's image was at stake. The headmaster, Mr. Holloway, spent his days caught between trying to maintain the academy's prestigious reputation and addressing the growing calls for change. It was a Tuesday morning when the headmaster's secretary knocked on his door. "Sir, you have a visitor." Mr. Holloway looked up, a frown creasing his brow. "A visitor? I'm in the middle of—" "She insisted, sir," the secretary whispered, her tone urgent. "It's Dr. Winthrop." Evelyn Winthrop entered with the same quiet authority she always carried. Her sharp eyes swept the room before settling on the headmaster. "Good morning, Mr. Holloway." "Dr. Winthrop, this is unexpected," he stammered, rising to his feet. "I'm sure it is," she replied, her voice calm but firm. "But I believe it's time we discuss something important, Derek Carter." Mr. Holloway's shoulders tensed. "Yes, of course. We've been discussing his case." "I'm aware," Evelyn said, folding her arms, "but discussions are not enough. You see, Mr. Holloway, this academy has a choice to become a place where integrity is recognized or to remain a relic of outdated traditions. Dr. Winthrop, I assure you we are proud of our values. Proud of values that punish a student for saving another's life," she interrupted, her voice sharp. "Proud of rules that prioritize appearances over compassion." The headmaster's face flushed. Our policies are designed to maintain standards. Standards that deny second chances? Evelyn leaned forward, her gaze piercing. Tell me, Mr. Holloway, what lesson are you teaching your students? That heroism is a liability? That kindness is a weakness? Silence stretched between them. The headmaster's gaze dropped to his desk. We are considering reinstating his scholarship. Considering? Evelyn's voice softened, but there was steel beneath it. You will reinstate his scholarship. But more than that, you will make it clear to your students that this school stands for more than wealth and privilege. Her words lingered in the air, and the headmaster felt the weight of them. He nodded slowly. You're right. I will speak with the board. Evelyn's expression softened. Good. And remember, Mr. Holloway, a school's true legacy is not in its walls, but in the character of the students it shapes. The following week, an announcement was made. The Johnson Winthrop Scholarship for Resilience and Leadership was established, named in honor of Derek and supported by Dr. Winthrop's endowment. 10 new scholarships would be awarded each year to students who demonstrated not just academic excellence, but courage, integrity, and kindness. The news spread quickly. Students whispered in the hallways, teachers exchanged approving nods, and even those who had once mocked Derek now saw him with new eyes. But for Derek, it wasn't the recognition that mattered. It was the quiet understanding that his actions had sparked something greater, a change, a ripple that went beyond his own struggle. As Derek sat by the window of room 203, watching the courtyard below, he felt a familiar presence. Mind if I join you? Liam's voice was hesitant, but warm. Derek smiled. Of course. Liam settled into the seat beside him, his expression serious. I wanted to thank you. Not just for that day, but for everything. Derek raised an eyebrow. Everything? For showing me that there's more to life than just being comfortable, Liam admitted. I used to think I was special because of my family, because of what we had, but you showed me that character is what really matters. Derek chuckled. Trust me, I didn't do anything special. I just did what felt right. Maybe that's the point, Liam said. Doing what's right even when it's hard. Derek leaned back, his gaze drifting to the courtyard. I guess so. A comfortable silence settled between them, the kind that only comes with true friendship. And as the bell rang, Derek stood, grabbing his worn notebook. Come on, let's get to class. The weeks that followed were different. St. Augustine Academy wasn't perfect, but something had shifted. Students spoke more kindly, teachers seemed more attentive, and Derek no longer felt like a ghost wandering the hallways. But it wasn't just the school that had changed. At home, Derek's mother, Marlene, came home with a tired but proud smile each night, her new position at Winthrop Lane a testament to her own resilience. His sister Nia chatted excitedly about her own studies, her wide eyes full of hope. Their small apartment, once a place of quiet struggle, now echoed with laughter and dreams. One evening, as Derek sat at his desk, flipping through his notebook, a thought struck him. He turned to the last page and in his careful handwriting wrote, I didn't save a life for recognition. I didn't stand up for praise. I did it because it was right. And sometimes, that's enough. The next morning, as he walked through the academy's gates, Derek felt a sense of peace. The sunlight danced across the courtyard, the ivy leaves rustling in the gentle breeze. And for the first time in a long while, Derek Carter wasn't just surviving, he was thriving. He saw Liam waiting by the steps, waving him over. And beside Liam stood Dr. Winthrop, a proud smile on her face. As Derek approached, they walked together. Three unlikely allies, bound by courage, integrity, and a belief that kindness was the strongest force of all. And though the world hadn't become perfect, and challenges still lay ahead, Derek knew one thing with certainty. His story wasn't just about a test, a scholarship, or even a school. It was about the power of choosing kindness, even when the world told you to look away. It was a lesson not just for him, but for everyone who walked through those hallowed halls. And Derek's quiet strength would continue to inspire, long after the whispers had faded. In life, true character isn't measured by titles, wealth, or social recognition. It is revealed through kindness and integrity. The story of Derek Carter at St. Augustine Academy is a powerful reminder that doing the right thing can be costly in the moment, but it always leaves a lasting mark. Derek sacrificed his own future to save a classmate in need, and even though it seemed like he lost everything, his act of compassion sparked a wave of change. His courage inspired others, students, teachers, and even Dr. Evelyn Winthrop, who turned his moment of loss into an opportunity for many. His story shows that when we stand up for what is right, even at our own expense, we create a ripple effect of goodness that can transform lives. For an American audience, especially older viewers, Derek's story is a reminder of the values that never fade: honesty, courage, and compassion. No matter how much the world changes, these values remain a beacon of hope, guiding us to make choices that matter.